Imagine a city that's about to be completely wiped from the face of the earth. Seriously, an enemy army is right at the gates, the people inside are literally starving, and despair is pretty much the only thing anyone has left. It's right then, in that moment of total crisis, that one man makes probably the most illogical investment you could ever imagine. He buys a field. This is the story of that field, and it's one of the most powerful acts of hope in history. This single line from our source material, it just perfectly captures the whole crisis. Outside the city walls, you have the full might of the Babylonian Empire, ready to burn everything to the ground. But inside, our main character, the prophet Jeremiah, he's not out there rallying the troops. No, he's locked up in a prison cell. Okay, so to really feel the weight of this moment, we have to go back in time. We're standing in Jerusalem. The year is 588 BC, and an entire kingdom is right on the edge of total collapse. At the heart of all this, you've got two powerful rulers on a collision course. On one side, there's Nebuchadnezzar, the absolute beast of an emperor from Babylon. And on the other, you have Zedekiah, Judah's very last king. And as you can see right here on this timeline, all their years of tension are about to just explode in 588 BC with the siege of Jerusalem. And let's be clear, this wasn't some border dispute. The Babylonian war machine was the most terrifying force on the planet at the time. They had Jerusalem in a death grip, just strangling its supply lines. No food, no water, nothing was getting in or out. The city's fall wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. But the real drama isn't just what's happening outside the walls. Inside the palace, a whole different kind of war is going on. This one isn't fought with swords and shields, but with words. It's a bitter conflict between a really desperate king and a fearless prophet. And here's the wild part. The guy who threw Jeremiah in prison was his own king, Zedekiah. And what was his crime? Well, while the king was trying to rally everyone for one last stand, Jeremiah was out there publicly saying they were going to be totally destroyed and that it was God's will. I mean, from the king's perspective, that's not prophecy. That is straight up treason. And this prophecy got intensely personal. Jeremiah basically looked his king in the eye and told him, "There's no escape for you. You are going to be captured, you're going to be judged face to face by Nebuchadnezzar, and then you're going to be dragged off to Babylon in chains." It was the worst possible thing a king could hear, and so he punished the messenger for it. So it's right here, at this absolute lowest point. The city is starving, the king is defiant, the prophet is in chains. That the story takes a turn that is, well, frankly, it's just absurd. And this brings us right to the central mystery of the whole story. I mean, put yourself in their shoes for a second. Your city is about to be burned to the ground. All the land is about to be conquered. What is the single worst financial decision you could possibly make? Buying real estate. And yet, that is exactly what happens next. So while he's locked away, Jeremiah gets this divine instruction. He's told that his cousin, Hanamel, is going to show up and offer to sell him the family field back in their hometown. And Jeremiah is commanded to buy it. This piece of land that was either already overrun by Babylonians or was going to be completely worthless in just a few weeks. Now, it's really important to get this. This wasn't just some strange random idea. The request was based on a very real law called the right of redemption. See, in ancient Israel, land wasn't just an asset. It was your history, your identity, your tie to your ancestors. This law was all about keeping that heritage in the family. So Hanamel's offer was technically normal and totally legal. It was the timing, right in the middle of a city's total collapse, that made it absolutely crazy. And just as prophesied, Hanamel shows up at the prison. And now this bizarre, divine command is about to become a public, legally binding act. All done right in front of everybody. And this wasn't just for show. We're talking about a real financial transaction. Jeremiah meticulously weighs out 17 shekels of silver, which was a pretty significant amount of money. He's making a concrete, costly investment, pouring his own money into a future that, to everyone else watching, looked completely impossible. And the process itself was incredibly detailed. Jeremiah follows every single legal step to the letter. He signs the deed, he has it officially sealed, he calls in witnesses, and he weighs out the silver. He's making sure there is absolutely no doubt that this is a formal, binding contract, as legit as any other. Get this. The process even included this ancient practice of making 2 copies of the deed. You had a sealed copy, kind of like a master file that was for long-term preservation, and then you had an open copy that was available for anybody to look at. Everything about this whole thing was designed for permanence and legitimacy. And this is so crucial. This entire transaction was a piece of public theater. It wasn't done in some quiet corner. It happened right there in the prison courtyard, in full view of his cousin, the official witnesses, and every other official and prisoner who was there. Jeremiah was deliberately putting on a show for everyone to see. The final step is all about preservation. Jeremiah hands both of the deeds to his trusted scribe, Baruch, and gives him a very specific instruction. Put them in a clay jar for safekeeping. Why? So they would last for many days. This is a clear signal that these documents were meant to outlive the city itself. So after this very public and, let's be honest, very strange legal ceremony, we finally get to the why. What was the ultimate point of buying a worthless piece of land and carefully preserving the deed in a clay jar? And here it is. This is the whole reason for the elaborate act. The message was so powerful. This destruction, this exile, this catastrophe, it is not the end of the story. The purchase of that field was a divine promise that people would come back and life would actually begin again in this land. You see, the field itself was never really the point. It was a symbol. It was a physical, legally binding promise that, yes, you are going into exile, your city will be destroyed, your king will be captured, but you will return. You will rebuild. You will own a land here again. And what's amazing is that history shows us exactly how this incredible promise was fulfilled. Just 2 years later, exactly like Jeremiah predicted, Jerusalem fell. The long exile began. But decades later, the world shifted. The Babylonians got conquered by the Persians, and their king, Cyrus, issued a stunning decree. The Jewish exiles could go home. That deed in the clay pot had served its purpose. It was a promise that was kept. And that leaves us with a really powerful question, doesn't it? When everything seems like it's collapsing, when the present is just bleak and the future is so uncertain, what does it actually mean to perform an act of hope? What's our field of hope? That small, maybe even absurd-looking investment in a tomorrow that only faith can see?